In the grim darkness of the far future, even love is a battlefield. Imagine cradling your newborn, knowing that one day they will be fed to the endless war machine, not because you want to, but because the Imperium demands it. In Warhammer40K, parenthood isn't about raising dreams. It's about raising survivors. Every lullaby echoes through the screams of war, and every tear is a silent prayer to gods who never answer. This is not a story of comfort. It's a story of what happens when love itself becomes a sacrifice. In the vast, unending darkness of the Warhammer40K universe, the concept of parenthood carries a weight unlike any other. It is not the gentle bond of nurturing and protection as we know it on peaceful worlds. It is an existence drenched in fear, uncertainty, and quiet sorrow. To bring a child into a galaxy that knows only war is to invite a lifetime of dread, a constant reminder that innocence has no place beneath the shadow of the Imperium. A parent's heart becomes a fortress of pain, holding within it the fragile hope that somehow their child might survive what so many do not. In this grim reality, raising a child is not a dream of joy, but an act of defiance against despair itself. Every sunrise feels like a borrowed moment before the next planetary bombardment. Every breath of peace is only the silence before the screaming begins again, in countless Hive cities across the Imperium. Parents hold their children close as the thunder of distant cannons echoes through metal walls. They whisper words of comfort that even they no longer believe, praying to the Emperor that their little one will not be chosen by the administratum's cold lottery to serve as a soldier or laborer before their childhood even ends. The idea of family becomes fractured, reshaped by the demands of survival. Mothers and fathers no longer dream of watching their children grow into free, happy beings. Instead, they cling to a desperate wish that their sons and daughters will live long enough to see another dawn, to avoid the plague, the conscription, or the heresy that consumes so many. Even love itself becomes dangerous, because attachment is a luxury in a world that devours hope. A parent cannot afford to dream, yet cannot stop dreaming. That contradiction is their torment. In the Imperium, parenting is not guided by tenderness, but by necessity. Parents must teach their children to hide from danger before they can walk, to obey before they can understand. The laughter of a child is not a sign of joy, but a dangerous sound that might draw the wrong attention. The same hands that once held a baby in affection must later teach them to hold a weapon, to kneel before the Emperor's shrine, to fear the Inquisition more than death. Every moment of warmth is shadowed by the knowledge that this warmth cannot last. The galaxy is cruel, and it demands obedience, sacrifice, and blood. A parent's greatest lesson is not how to live, but how to endure. Imagine a mother in a manufacturing world, her arms scarred from years of labor, cradling her infant while the sirens of air raids scream outside. She rocks the child in rhythm with the pounding of the machinery, her lullaby drowned by the noise of industry. Her husband has long since been taken by the Astra Militarum, his name listed among billions of the Emperor's chosen. She keeps his tattered service badge beside the crib, a symbol of duty and loss. Her child's first words will not be mother or father, but perhaps duty, faith, or fear. That is the first harsh reality of parenthood in this universe. The child is born not into love, but into obligation, even on the more fortunate worlds. Far from the front lines, the fear never truly leaves. Imperial propaganda fills every screen, every prayer, every classroom. Children are raised to love the Emperor more than their own parents, to serve him unquestioningly. Parents must watch as their children's hearts and minds are molded by the ecclesiarchy, stripped of individuality in the name of loyalty. To resist is heresy. To question is death. And so they smile through the indoctrination, holding their tears behind tight lips as they whisper the same lies to their children that were once whispered to them. The cycle continues, generation after generation, until even love itself becomes an act of faith rather than feeling. The emotional cost of raising a child in such a world cannot be measured in tears or words. It is a pain that lodges deep in the soul, a dull ache that never fades. Parents carry the unbearable weight of knowing that every lesson they teach their children is a preparation for suffering. When they tell them stories at night, those tales are not of hope but of survival, stories of saints who burned for the Emperor, of heroes who died to protect humanity. The concept of a happy ending is alien. Every bedtime prayer is a plea that their child might die quickly, cleanly, without corruption. That is the kind of mercy parents pray for in Warhammer40K, not for long lives, but for honorable deaths. Even among the nobility or the highborn, the story is the same, only draped in finer clothing. A noble father gazes upon his heir and does not see a child, but a future political weapon, a pawn in the endless games of power that govern imperial society. Love becomes transactional. Affection becomes weakness. Even those with wealth cannot escape the dread of the Imperium's demands. The higher you rise, the deeper the fear digs into your bones, because you know how fragile even privilege is in the eyes of the God Emperor's servants. Every parent knows that one word of suspicion, one whisper of heresy, can erase an entire family from existence. To raise a child in the Warhammer40K universe is to exist in constant, emotional contradiction, to love deeply but express it coldly, to hope fiercely but never speak it aloud, to nurture life in a place that worships death. The bond between parent and child becomes a quiet rebellion, a fragile thread of humanity dangling over an abyss. Each embrace feels stolen from fate, each act of kindness a whisper of resistance against the crushing machinery of war. Parents cling to these small moments not because they believe they can change anything, but because it is all they have left that is truly their own. In a galaxy ruled by gods and monsters, the act of loving your child becomes the most dangerous and the most sacred thing you can do. In the universe of Warhammer40K, childhood is not a phase of innocence, it is a countdown. The moment a child takes their first breath, the gears of the Imperium begin to turn around them. There is no gentle laughter of play, no safety of a mother's embrace that can shield them from what is coming. From the moment they open their eyes, the world begins to shape them into something useful, a worker, a soldier, a servant, or a martyr. Their worth is not measured by joy or potential, but by obedience and endurance. Innocence, in such a place, is a weakness that the galaxy does not forgive. The loss of childhood happens not in years, but in moments, in the first command barked by a drill sergeant, in the first sight of blood, in the first prayer recited to a god who will never answer. In Hive cities that stretch for miles into the poisoned skies, children grow up breathing ash before they can speak. They learn to work with blistered hands, carrying scraps, cleaning machinery, scavenging whatever keeps the family alive. Their games are played in the ruins of forgotten wars, surrounded by walls etched with the names of the dead. They hear stories of angels, the space marines, who serve the Emperor with perfect devotion, and they dream not of being free, but of being chosen. They do not know that to be chosen means to die young, to be transformed into something unrecognizable. That dream is the cruelest lie the Imperium tells, that service is glory, that suffering is sacred, that to live without purpose is heresy. These ideas seep into their minds before they even learn their own names. And by the time they can question them, it is already too late. In this world, parents watch as their children's laughter fades faster each year. They see the spark of wonder die behind their eyes as indoctrination replaces imagination. Schools are not places of learning, but factories of faith, where children memorize holy scriptures instead of discovering who they are. Every lesson reminds them that the Emperor sees all, that doubt is sin, that mercy is weakness. Teachers wear symbols of purity seals on their robes, and the classrooms echo not with curiosity, but with chants of loyalty. The young are told that their bodies belong to the Imperium, that their souls belong to the Emperor, that their minds must remain pure or face burning at the hands of the Inquisition. In such an environment, even the simplest act of questioning, why, becomes an act of rebellion. And rebellion has only one punishment. The children who grow up under these conditions never truly know freedom. Their choices are illusions carefully crafted to maintain control. The administratum decides where they will work. The ecclesiarchy decides what they will believe. The astra militarum decides who will live and who will die. Their individuality dissolves into the collective machinery of the Imperium, and by the time they reach adulthood, there is nothing left of who they once were. The innocence that once defined their early days, the innocence of curiosity, play, and emotion, is systematically stripped away. The process is not violent at first. It begins subtly, with words of faith, songs of devotion, and stories of saints who died smiling. But it always ends the same way, with blood, fear, and silence, even on distant frontier worlds, where life is less structured but equally dangerous. Innocence cannot survive. Children learn to fear the night, for the darkness hides things that no prayer can banish. The whisper of demons, the lurking presence of Xenos, the sudden raids of chaos cults, all are constant reminders that safety is a lie. A child might witness their first killing before they can even walk. They might see their parents executed for blasphemy or taken by slavers, and the Imperium will call it justice. Each trauma carves away another piece of innocence until all that remains is survival. In time, these children grow numb to horror. They stop crying when the gunfire starts. They stop trembling when the soldiers march through the streets. That numbness is their only defense against the madness around them. For many, the ultimate theft of innocence comes in the form of recruitment. The Astra Militarum and the Schola, Progenium search the ruins of war-torn worlds for orphans, the perfect material for shaping loyalty. These children are taken from what little they know and thrown into institutions that train them to obey without hesitation. Their names are replaced by numbers. Their pasts are erased. Compassion, empathy, and imagination are beaten out of them until only duty remains. They are told that the Emperor is their father now, that love is weakness, and that dying for him is the highest honor. In time they believe it. When the day comes that they march into war, their faces blank and eyes empty, there is no trace of the child that once dreamed of a peaceful life. The transformation is complete. The Imperium has created another weapon dot in the rare moments when children are allowed to play. Their games reflect the world they live in. They pretend to be soldiers purging heretics, inquisitors hunting traitors, or missionaries spreading the Emperor's light. Even their fantasies are soaked in blood and faith. The toys they carve are shaped like bolters and chainswords, not dolls or animals. The songs they sing are hymns of victory and sacrifice. Childhood, as we understand it, does not exist here, only the slow preparation for service and suffering. Their imaginations are confined within the boundaries of loyalty. To dream beyond that is dangerous, for dreams are the first step toward doubt, and doubt is the seed of heresy. Some children are not even granted the illusion of a future. On Forge worlds, they are born into servitude, their lives bound to the machines of the Mechanicus. Their tiny hands are guided by mechanical priests who replace limbs with augmetics when flesh fails. They do not learn to play. They learn to repair, to obey, to serve. The Omnissiah becomes their deity, and human connection fades into irrelevance. By the time they reach maturity, their laughter has been replaced by the cold hum of machinery. Their innocence is consumed by metal and faith, their humanity traded for efficiency. And no one questions it, because in the Imperium, to be useful is to be blessed. There are few places where innocence lasts longer than a few years. Perhaps on the quietest agri-worlds, far from the eyes of the Inquisition, a handful of children might still chase each other through the fields, unaware of the horrors beyond their skies. But even there, the whispers of war eventually arrive. The tithes come. The soldiers march. The skies darken with ships, and the children learn that the galaxy is not theirs to dream in. Even those who survive the invasion never return to who they were. The light in their eyes fades, replaced by the grim understanding that there is no such thing as peace. Only the pause between wars. The loss of innocence in Warhammer40K is not a tragedy that happens once. It is a continuous systemic process that defines the very structure of the Imperium. Childhood is consumed by faith, labor, and fear until all that remains are the obedient shells of what could have been. Parents cannot protect their children from it, because they too are trapped within the same machinery. The Emperor's will leaves no space for softness, no room for freedom. The galaxy devours its young and calls it devotion. In the grim expanse of the Warhammer40K universe, love does not exist as we understand it. It is twisted, reshaped, and suffocated under the weight of fear, faith, and survival. Parental love, the most natural bond in humanity, becomes something dark and conflicted. It is no longer a source of comfort or joy, but a burden that must be hidden, a secret that could one day bring destruction upon the very people it seeks to protect. In a galaxy where every emotion is a potential weakness, to love your child is to invite pain. Yet, despite the crushing oppression of the Imperium, that love endures, broken, silent, and desperate. It becomes both a curse and a form of rebellion. In the towering Hive cities, where sunlight never touches the ground and the air tastes like smoke, a mother holds her child close at night, whispering words of devotion in the darkness. She knows that love is a dangerous luxury when the Imperium neither recognizes nor rewards. The ecclesiarchy teaches her that devotion to the Emperor must come before all else, before family, before affection, before self. To love too deeply is to risk idolatry, to place something above divine duty. But she cannot stop herself. Each time her child smiles, something inside her aches, knowing that one day, that smile will fade beneath the discipline of the Schola, the cold eyes of the commissariat, or the unforgiving command of the Astra Militarum. Her love, instead of freeing her, becomes a chain around her heart, a constant reminder that nothing in this universe is truly hers to keep. Fathers, too, are bound by the same torment. Many serve in the endless regiments of the Imperial Guard, fighting wars that will never end, on worlds whose names they will never remember. Those who survive return home as hollow men, scarred, hardened, their humanity worn thin by the screams of the dying. When they look upon their children, they see not innocence, but fragility. They see everything that can be taken away in an instant. And so they teach their sons and daughters to be strong, not loving; obedient, not kind; cautious, not hopeful. They hide their affection behind harsh words and stricter rules, believing that cruelty now might save their child's life later. In this world, love is expressed not through comfort, but through preparation for suffering. Faith, the foundation of the Imperium, poisons love with its demands. The ecclesiarchy insists that all affection must flow upward, to the Emperor, to his servants, to the machinery of devotion. Parents are told to love their children as extensions of their faith, to raise them not for themselves, but as offerings to the throne. The child is not their own, but the Emperor's. Every prayer uttered over a crib is a promise of service, every lullaby a quiet surrender to divine will. Parents teach their children to recite the catechisms of protection before they even learn to speak. Love becomes indistinguishable from worship, and worship becomes another form of control. When a parent kisses their child goodnight, it is both an act of affection and a farewell, because they know the Emperor might call upon them at any time. And the Imperium does not return what it takes. In the frozen hives, on Forge worlds, and in the ash-covered colonies of the Imperium, survival replaces tenderness. Families do not have time for warmth. Every day is spent scavenging, working, fighting, or praying. The line between love and survival blurs completely. A mother teaches her daughter how to load Alaskan before she teaches her how to read. A father warns his son to never cry, because tears attract cruelty, and cruelty is always watching. These lessons are born from love, but they kill innocence faster than any weapon. Parents do not want to harden their children, but the galaxy leaves them no choice. To show compassion openly is to risk being seen as weak, and weakness is punished swiftly. The Inquisition does not care about the reasons behind disobedience or emotion. It only sees deviation from duty. And so love hides in shadows, quiet, invisible, but alive. In some places, the corruption of love becomes even more grotesque. On worlds where the ecclesiarchy's grip is absolute, parents turn in their own children for the sin of heresy, believing that by doing so, they are saving their souls. Tears fall, prayers are whispered, but the decision is made with trembling faith. They are told that true love means sacrifice, even the sacrifice of their own flesh and blood. And when the pyres burn bright in the town squares, when the smoke of purity rises to the heavens, these same parents watch through tears, convincing themselves that their loss is holy. Love has been twisted so completely that it becomes indistinguishable from cruelty. The Imperium teaches them that mercy is treason, and so they give their children to the flames with shaking hands and broken hearts. For those who live under the constant threat of war, love becomes a fragile illusion. A family might gather in silence before dawn, knowing that by nightfall, one of them will be gone, conscripted, drafted, or killed. They hold each other tightly, not daring to speak their fear aloud. Words have power, and to name the pain is to give it life. So they love through silence. A father might repair his daughter's respirator without saying a word. A mother might slip a saint's medallion into her son's pack before he leaves for the front. These are the gestures of love that remain, small, hidden, unspoken. The Imperium may command obedience, but it cannot completely erase the human instinct to care. Even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, love flickers like a dying candle. Refusing to go out, there are parents who serve within the noble houses, those whose children are groomed to inherit titles and power rather than weapons. But even there, love is tainted by fear and duty. A noble's affection for their heir is buried beneath expectation and politics. Every gesture is calculated, every word measured. A child born into nobility learns quickly that affection must be earned through loyalty, that mistakes bring shame not only upon themselves, but upon generations of lineage. They are raised with tutors instead of hugs, blessings instead of comfort. Their parents' love is conditional, tied to performance, obedience, and faith. To fail the family is to lose not only respect, but identity. Even in the marble halls of the wealthy, love is just another chain. Yet, beneath all the fear and conditioning, something deeply human persists. Parents still look into their children's eyes and feel the ache of wanting to protect them. They still dream, though they dare not admit it, of a life without war, without oppression, without the constant whisper of death. They carry these dreams silently, like forbidden relics, hidden deep within their hearts. Love becomes an act of quiet rebellion. Every moment of kindness shared between a parent and child defies the Imperium's cruelty. Every whispered "I love you" in the dark is an act of resistance against a system that thrives on despair. It is love that keeps the last fragments of humanity alive amidst the endless grind of war and faith. Even when it is twisted, broken, and weaponized, it endures. Because love, no matter how much it suffers, is the one thing the Imperium can never truly kill. The act of sending one's child to the battlefield in the Warhammer40K universe is an agony that words can barely capture. It is a moment where the human heart fractures between love and duty, between the primal instinct to protect and the cold command to obey. In the Imperium of man, parents do not get to choose whether their children will fight. The state decides, the emperor demands, and faith enforces. From the moment a child is born, their life is not their own, it belongs to the Imperium, to the endless machinery of war that consumes worlds and generations alike. For a parent, watching that machinery claim their child is like watching their soul being torn apart piece by piece, while still being forced to smile and say, "For the Emperor." Across countless worlds, this tragedy repeats endlessly. In the Hive cities, recruitment officers march through the streets with parchment lists and mechanical voices, calling out names that echo like death sentences. Families gather in silence as their children step forward, some trembling, others already numb. Mothers clutch small relics of faith, pressing them into their children's hands, a charm of Saint Celestin, a scrap of scripture, a pendant of the Aquila. Fathers stand stoic, their eyes hollow, knowing that to protest is heresy. The moment of departure is swift, brutal, and final. No tears are permitted, no outbursts of emotion allowed. The soldiers of the Astra Militarum do not tolerate weakness, and love is weakness in the eyes of the Imperium. Parents must watch their children march away, swallowed by the endless tide of war, and pretend to feel pride instead of despair. There are worlds where children are taken even younger. On the shrine worlds, the ecclesiarchy claims the most pious for service. The Schola Progenium gathers orphans and trains them into instruments of faith, commissars, stormtroopers, sisters of battle. Parents who lose their children to these institutions are told they have been blessed, that their offspring have been chosen for divine purpose. They are expected to feel honored, to celebrate the loss as if it were salvation. Yet behind the prayers and hymns, the pain festers. The knowledge that their child will be molded into a weapon, stripped of identity and emotion, haunts every moment of their remaining life. To refuse the Emperor's calling is to commit heresy, but to obey is to lose everything that makes them human. The moral agony of this duty runs deep. Parents are told that the Emperor's will is absolute, that sacrifice is the highest virtue. But no amount of doctrine can erase the quiet scream in their hearts when they imagine their child standing in the mud of an alien world, lasgun trembling in their hands, facing horrors beyond comprehension. The Imperium demands that they suppress that fear, that they silence their humanity in the name of loyalty. Mothers pray for their children to die quickly before corruption can reach them. Fathers carve their family names into the walls, hoping that some trace might remain after the next conscription. Every family carries this wound, but no one speaks of it. Silence is survival, and grief is forbidden. In the endless war zones of the galaxy, where planets are reduced to ash and skies burn with plasma fire, the young are consumed without hesitation. The Imperium's war machine is vast, and it hungers constantly for new bodies. Entire generations vanish into its maw. The Astra Militarum trains recruits in camps where compassion is replaced by discipline and fear. Children who once held their parents' hands now hold rifles, their childhood memories erased by the roar of commands and the smell of blood. Their training is brutal, designed not just to prepare them for battle, but to destroy who they once were. They are told that emotion leads to failure, that hesitation is death. The last fragments of innocence are burned away beneath the lash of duty. For parents who serve as soldiers themselves, the pain is doubled. Some see their children on the front lines, fighting under the same banners, wearing the same insignia. They glimpse them through smoke and fire, unable to reach them, unable to protect them. Others receive news of their deaths through impersonal data slates or cold, official reports. Your child died in service to the Emperor, the words always say, as if that should be enough to ease the pain. There are no graves to visit, no bodies to bury. The galaxy is too vast, and death too common. Mourning becomes an act of quiet rebellion. Some parents hide in the dark corners of the hab blocks and whisper forbidden prayers for their lost children, knowing that if the Inquisition heard them, they would burn for it. In some regions, especially on the frontier worlds and in the void-faring ships, the conscription is more desperate. There, families have no choice but to offer their children willingly to the Imperial Guard or the Navy. It is seen as a form of protection, not from enemies, but from starvation, from disease, from the slow decay of hopelessness. Sending a child to war becomes an act of twisted mercy. A mother might tell herself that at least her son will have food, that at least her daughter will have a purpose. But in her heart, she knows the truth, that she is offering her child to the slaughter. This knowledge corrodes the soul, yet in the Imperium, it is considered noble. Sacrifice is the currency of survival. For those who serve the Adeptus Mechanicus, the pain takes another form. When their children are selected to become part of the machine cult, they are not sent to die in war, but to be consumed by the cold logic of the Omnissiah. Parents watch as their children's flesh is replaced with steel, their voices replaced by mechanical tones. They lose their warmth, their laughter, their humanity, piece by piece, in the name of progress and divine function. To love such a child becomes a torment, because the person who once smiled back at them no longer exists. What remains is a machine that calls them biological progenitor instead of mother or father. Yet still, the parents whisper their names in secret, refusing to let go of the memory that the Imperium demands they forget. The greatest cruelty of all lies in the fact that parents are made to believe their suffering is righteous. The propaganda of the Imperium tells them that their children's deaths feed the survival of mankind, that each fallen soldier adds to the Emperor's glory. Massive parades march through the streets with banners declaring, "Their sacrifice sustains us." Public ceremonies praise the families of the fallen, showering them with hollow honorifics and worthless medallions. The pain of loss is transformed into a tool of control. To grieve is to doubt, and to doubt is heresy. So they stand silently among the cheering crowds, faces blank, hearts bleeding, pretending to be proud. Even among the most devout, the cracks begin to show. Some parents secretly curse the Emperor in the dead of night, their voices shaking as they whisper into the void. Others cling to the faint hope that their children might still be alive somewhere. Perhaps taken by the Space Marines, perhaps protected by fate. These fragile hopes are dangerous. They give birth to forbidden thoughts, to the idea that maybe love is more sacred than obedience, that maybe the Imperium is wrong. And yet, even in those moments of despair, they know that they cannot speak such thoughts aloud. The walls have ears, and the price of honesty is death. Every act of sending a child to war in this universe is a moral execution of the soul. It strips away the humanity of both parent and child, leaving only devotion to a system that devours them both. It is a ritual repeated across 1,000,000 worlds under 1,000,000 different skies. Yet it always ends the same way: a mother's trembling hands letting go, a father's silent prayer swallowed by the roar of marching boots, and a child disappearing into the endless, hungry dark of the galaxy. The Emperor of mankind is worshipped as a god, a divine protector whose light shields humanity from the endless horrors of the universe. Every shrine, every cathedral, every whispered prayer across the stars speaks of his mercy, his vigilance, his undying love for his children. But beneath the golden myth lies a hollow silence, a silence that echoes in the hearts of parents, who beg for their children's safety and receive no answer. The false hope of the Emperor's protection is one of the most painful illusions in the Warhammer40K universe. It is the promise that sustains billions, and yet it is also the very chain that binds them to suffering. Parents cling to that hope because it is all they have left. They pray, they sacrifice, they obey, believing that somewhere, somehow, the Emperor sees them, that his light will spare their children from the nightmare that devours humanity. But in truth, the Emperor has not spoken for 10,000 years, and his golden light no longer warms. It burns in the heart of Terra, where the Astronomicon pulses across the galaxy like a beacon of divine will. The faithful gather beneath the endless spires of the ecclesiarchy to weep for their lost sons and daughters. They bring offerings of incense, of blood, of tears. They kneel before the statues of the emperor enthroned, surrounded by angels carved in stone. They whisper their grief into the marble, asking for mercy, asking for meaning. But the emperor's gaze never shifts, his lips never move. He is a god of silence, a corpse preserved by machines, worshipped by billions who do not know that their prayers die in the same air that carries them. The priests tell them that his silence is a test of faith, that their pain pleases him, that every child lost in battle strengthens his divine purpose. And the parents believe because disbelief is death. Heresy is not just punished, it is erased. To doubt the emperor is to invite the Inquisition to your door, to see your family burned for impurity. So they kneel harder, pray louder, and force their faith to smother their despair. On the distant worlds of the Imperium, where war never ceases, the illusion of divine protection becomes both comfort and torment. In the trenches of a forsaken battlefield, a soldier clutches a charm of the Aquila and whispers the same words his mother once said to him before he left home. The emperor protects. He repeats it again and again as the shells fall, as the screams grow louder, as the sky burns with warp fire. It is the mantra that keeps him from breaking, the lie that keeps him fighting. His mother, light years away, kneels in front of a flickering shrine, saying those same words, believing that her devotion somehow shields him. She does not know that her prayers have already reached a dead god, that the emperor's throne consumes souls, not saves them. She believes because the alternative, the truth, would destroy her completely. The Imperium thrives on this kind of faith, feeding on the desperation of its people. The illusion of protection is the mortar that holds the crumbling empire together. In every city, from the polluted hives to the cold void stations, the walls are covered with slogans. The emperor protects. It is written above factory doors, painted on the sides of tanks, etched into the blades of soldiers. It becomes a reflex, a spell against despair. When children are born, parents mark their foreheads with the sign of the Aquila, blessing them in the emperor's name. When they die, their bodies are burned with the same words on the lips of the mourners. Life and death both belong to him. The illusion of safety becomes the rhythm of existence. The people do not ask whether the emperor truly protects, because the question itself is forbidden. To live in the Imperium is to believe without proof, to love without hope, to pray to a God who cannot hear. The priests of the ecclesiarchy exploit that devotion mercilessly. They preach that suffering is holy, that loss is proof of faith. A mother who loses her child is told she has been blessed with martyrdom. A father whose family is taken by plague is told it is the emperor's plan. They are taught that pain purifies, that grief is a gift. The shrines overflow with offerings, food, coins, blood, given by those who have nothing left to give. The clergy feed on their devotion, their temples growing fat on misery, while the faithful starve outside. Yet still they pray, because in the darkness of the galaxy, faith is the only light left, even if it blinds. Hope becomes poison, yet they drink it willingly. Some parents see the truth too late. They realize that the emperor does not protect, he consumes. He demands endless sacrifice, endless obedience, endless death. Their children die in his name, their bodies buried beneath banners that read, "For the throne." The Imperium celebrates these deaths as victories, building monuments of stone and flame to honor the fallen. Parents are forced to stand beside these monuments, their faces carved into masks of devotion, their tears hidden behind prayers. They are told to be proud. They are told that their children now sit beside the emperor in eternal glory. But deep inside, they feel the void. They know that their children are gone, their souls swallowed by a God who no longer listens. That is the cruelest truth, that love feeds faith, and faith feeds the machine. There are some who dare to question. In whispers, in secret, in the cracks of broken cities. There are parents who look at the stars and wonder if the Emperor ever cared at all. They ask themselves why the righteous suffer, why the innocent burn, why their prayers are met with silence. They light candles not to the Emperor, but to the memory of their children. They keep their small acts of defiance hidden, a forbidden lullaby, a name carved where no one will see, a quiet promise that love will outlast faith. These are heresies of the heart, small rebellions that keep a shred of humanity alive. The Imperium would call them traitors, but in truth, they are the last believers in something purer than dogma. They believe in love without reward, on other worlds. Far from the grip of the ecclesiarchy, the illusion persists in different forms. Rogue traders, planetary governors, and even lowly laborers all invoke the Emperor's name before battle, before sleep, before breath. His image is burned into banners and skin alike, his face painted on the sides of ships that drift through the void. To live without his name is unthinkable. The galaxy is too cruel, too vast, too empty to face alone. The Emperor's myth fills that emptiness, giving meaning to endless suffering. It is the last defense against madness. Even those who secretly know the truth, that the Emperor is not a god, but a corpse, continue to speak his name. Because silence is worse. Silence means there is no one left to hear them. The false hope of the Emperor's protection is what keeps the Imperium alive, and what kills its people slowly from within. Parents teach their children to pray before they eat, before they sleep, before they march into battle. They teach them to thank the Emperor for pain as much as for peace. It is a cycle that feeds itself endlessly. Hope giving birth to obedience, obedience giving birth to sacrifice, and sacrifice giving birth to more hope. The galaxy turns on this faith like a wheel that never stops grinding. And at the center of it all, the golden throne hums, consuming the souls of 1,000 psychers every day to keep its god alive. The Emperor protects, they say. But in truth, it is the people who protect the myth, even as it devours them. For a parent in this universe, the lie is unbearable, and yet it is necessary. To stop believing is to lose the only light left in the dark. To believe is to suffer in silence, waiting for a miracle that will never come. And so they kneel, they pray, they whisper the sacred words over the sleeping faces of their children, believing, hoping, pretending that somewhere, beyond the stars, the Emperor hears them. On the countless worlds of the Imperium, there exists one truth that binds all. The price of survival is paid in blood. Parenthood in this universe is not measured by warmth or nurture, but by the ability to let go. In a galaxy that knows no peace, no safety, no mercy, love becomes a burden too heavy to carry. Parents learn to hide it, to bury it deep beneath layers of obedience and faith. To love too much is to invite suffering, for love is the one thing the Imperium cannot protect. It is fragile, human, and dangerous. The system does not care for the bonds between families, it only cares for duty. The harsh reality of parenthood in Warhammer40K is that every child born is already claimed by something greater, the military, the church, the hive, or the warp. A parent's only role is to prepare them for the inevitable, to raise them not for life, but for sacrifice. In the sprawling hive cities where billions suffocate under layers of pollution and steel, children are born into servitude before they even open their eyes. Their parents, broken and bent from years of labor, do not dream of giving them freedom. They dream only that their children will survive another day without being taken by disease, starvation, or conscription. A mother in a hive does not tell her child stories of hope or adventure. She teaches them how to endure, how to stay unnoticed, how to obey. Every lesson is a shield against death. When the tithes come, the dreaded collection of souls demanded by the Imperium, parents watch silently as their children are taken away to serve in the Astra Militarum or the Manufactorums. They do not resist, because resistance means death for all. Instead, they whisper one last blessing: the Emperor protects. Their tears fall in silence as the transports rise into the polluted sky, carrying away everything that once made life worth living. On feudal worlds, where superstition and devotion are woven into the soil, the cycle is the same, though cloaked in ritual. Families offer their firstborn sons to the planetary guard as a sacred duty, believing that to serve the Emperor is the highest honor. Fathers stand tall and proud as their sons march away in ill-fitting armor, holding rusted rifles and shaking hands. Mothers watch from the shadows, clutching small relics, trying to remember their children's faces before the war changes them forever. They will never see them again. When word comes years later that their sons died in battle, their grief must be hidden beneath prayers of gratitude. To mourn too openly is heresy. It implies doubt in the Emperor's divine will. So they smile through the pain, thanking a God who never answers, convincing themselves that their loss has meaning. It is the only way to survive the emptiness that follows Dot in the Hive worlds. The fate of daughters is no kinder. Many are taken by the Schola Progenium, the orphanages of the ecclesiarchy, where children of the faithful fallen are raised in absolute loyalty to the Imperium. Parents who lose their children to the Schola tell themselves it is an honor, but deep down they know what it truly means. Their daughters will be molded into tools of the state, sisters of battle, inquisitorial agents, or clerical servants. Their childhoods will be stripped away, their emotions burned out through endless discipline and indoctrination. The mother who once held her daughter close will never again hear her laugh, never again see her smile freely. When she kneels in prayer, she tells herself that her daughter now serves a higher purpose, that her sacrifice brings light to humanity. But the truth haunts her. Her child is gone, and in her place stands something made of faith and fire, loyal not to love, but to the throne. For the upper echelons of the Imperium, parenthood carries its own poison. The nobles of Terra, the governors of worlds, and the officers of the Astra Militarum all raise their children not as family, but as heirs of duty. Love is a weakness they cannot afford. They teach obedience, control, and fear. They do not embrace their children. They test them. They do not nurture. They command. A child of the nobility grows up surrounded by gold and isolation, knowing that every gesture of affection hides ambition, every smile masks calculation. Even among the powerful, the curse of the Imperium persists. Love is dangerous because it divides loyalty. To love one's child more than the Emperor is to sin, and sin invites ruin. So even in the halls of power, where light still burns and air still flows clean, parenthood is a quiet tragedy, buried beneath the armor of faith. The soldiers of the Imperium, those countless millions who fight and die in the Emperor's name, carry a deeper kind of grief. When they leave their homes, they know they will never return. Their children will grow up hearing stories of their valor, but never feel their touch. The Imperium does not send letters home. It sends medals and banners soaked in blood. A father who dies on some nameless world will be remembered not as a man, but as a symbol. His sacrifice becomes propaganda, his death another brick in the fortress of imperial faith. The state erases his humanity, leaving behind only a story, one that comforts the grieving but hides the horror. The children left behind are taught to be proud, to aspire to the same fate. The machine continues to turn, grinding down one generation after another. Even those who serve the Emperor most devoutly are not spared. A priest may bless his child with the Emperor's light, only to see that same child burned for heresy years later. An inquisitor may order the extermination of an entire city, knowing that his own bloodline perished in the flames. The line between faith and cruelty dissolves until nothing remains but obedience. Parenthood in this universe is an act of constant loss of innocence, of connection, of humanity. Every parent learns to detach their heart from their flesh, to watch their children vanish into the gears of the Imperium and tell themselves it was for the greater good. In the darkness between stars, some parents still dream. There are those who whisper forbidden hopes that one day the Emperor will awaken, not as a god, but as a man, and that he will see what has been done in his name. They hope that he will forgive the countless mothers who wept in silence, the fathers who sacrificed their children to the lie of faith. But those dreams are dangerous. The Inquisition hunts such thoughts with fire and blade. And yet, hope cannot be killed completely. It flickers in the smallest acts: a father hiding his child from conscription, a mother teaching her child to think freely, a family fleeing into the wilderness to escape the tithes. These are acts of rebellion, of love defying the will of the Imperium. Small sparks of humanity in a galaxy that has forgotten what that word means. The truth is that in Warhammer40K, parenthood is not a gift, it is a sentence. It means bringing life into a universe that has no place for it. It means preparing your child to serve, to fight, to die. It means loving them enough to let them go, even when every part of you wants to hold on. There are no lullabies, no peaceful nights, no happy endings. Only the constant hum of machinery, the echo of prayers, and the unending march of faith that consumes everything it touches. Parents become ghosts long before they die, their love reduced to memory and ritual. They raise their children knowing they will lose them, and still, they do it, not because they believe in salvation, but because love, even in its most broken form, refuses to die. There are stories whispered in the quiet corners of the Imperium, stories that never reach the ears of the ecclesiarchy or the Inquisition. They are told in hushed tones by those who still remember what it means to feel, what it means to love without permission. These are the stories of parents who dared to defy the will of the Imperium for the sake of their children, of those who broke the sacred chain of obedience that binds all humanity to the throne. Their lives are short, their ends inevitable, but their courage lingers like the faint echo of a song the galaxy has forgotten. In a universe built on fear and faith, even the smallest act of defiance becomes an act of worship, not to a god, but to the fragile, fading light of human compassion on a forgotten mining world. Deep within the segmentum obscurus, a mother hides her son from the tithe collectors. She works in the mines by day, breaking her body for the Imperium, and by night she digs a small refuge beneath the foundations of her dwelling. Every year, the Imperial Guard comes to take new recruits, and every year she tells them her child died in infancy. The boy grows in silence, learning to move in the shadows, to whisper instead of speak. She teaches him to read from scraps of discarded scripture, but she changes the words, rewriting them so that the Emperor becomes not a god of war, but a man who once loved humanity deeply. It is a heresy so small it could vanish with her breath, but to her, it is everything. When the patrols finally discover her secret, she does not beg for mercy. She kneels beside her son and whispers that love is worth dying for, even in a world that punishes it. The next day, the mines echo with gunfire, and the story of that mother is buried under dust and ash. But among the workers, her name becomes a prayer, not to the Emperor, but to something older, something real. In the vast Hive cities where billions drown in darkness, rebellion takes quieter forms. A father working in the manufacturums saves tiny shards of metal from the machines, shaping them into small charms for his daughter. Each charm is etched with words of protection, not the official imperial slogans, but words of his own making. Be free, remember, dream. He gives her one each year on her birthday, hiding them inside her ration packs. To the overseers, they are nothing but trinkets. But to the child, they are the only proof that love still exists in a world of iron and smoke. When she is grown, she carries those charms with her into battle as a guardswoman. One by one, she loses them, in mud, in blood, in fire. When the last one falls, she carves the same words into her rifle before the final charge. The soldiers around her hear her whispering, and for a brief moment, the words spread like a forgotten prayer. In the middle of war, she remembers that she was once loved. Some parents turn their rebellion inward. They serve the Imperium, but they do so with hollow hearts. They recite the prayers, they follow the rituals, but their faith is gone. They pretend to believe, not out of fear, but out of strategy, because open defiance only destroys what little remains. Instead, they nurture quiet strength in their children. A mother in the Schola Progenium, raising orphans for the ecclesiarchy, secretly teaches her students to think, to question, to see beyond dogma. She tells them stories that do not exist in the sacred texts, stories of laughter, of friendship, of peace. Her lessons are dangerous, her love forbidden, but she continues until the day the Inquisition discovers her. They take her away in chains, but her words remain in the minds of the children. Years later, when one of those orphans becomes a sister of battle, she still remembers the forbidden lesson, that faith without kindness is not faith at all. Even in the heat of battle, when her orders are to burn and cleanse, a single doubt flickers inside her, a spark of mercy born from a love she was never supposed to know beyond the reach of the Astronomicon. In the void where imperial control fades, some parents flee altogether. Smugglers, deserters, and refugees drift through the stars, searching for a world untouched by tyranny. Many die before they ever find it, swallowed by the warp or hunted down by the Imperial Navy, but a few succeed. They build small colonies in the shadows of forgotten moons, where they live without banners, without oaths, without gods. They raise their children beneath open skies, teaching them the old ways: compassion, cooperation, curiosity. These small havens are fragile, always at risk of discovery. But for those who live there, even a single generation of freedom is worth the risk. They are the last remnants of humanity as it once was, before faith became a weapon, before love became a crime. There are also stories of those who fall to the other side, the desperate parents who turn to the ruinous powers, believing the dark gods will do what the emperor never did: protect their children. In the depths of the Eye of Terror, there are cults formed from grief and devotion, where parents sacrifice everything, even their own souls, to save the ones they love. A father prays to Slanesh for the return of his lost daughter, only to see her reborn as a demon, beautiful and monstrous. A mother bargains with Nurgle for her son's life, and he grants her wish. The boy lives, but becomes a carrier of plague, doomed to spread his father's suffering to countless others. These stories are warnings and tragedies, but they are also proof that love, even twisted and corrupted, still exists in the most forsaken corners of the galaxy. The Imperium calls them heretics, but perhaps they are simply parents who could no longer bear the silence of the throne. Across all worlds, the same question haunts every parent's heart: is it better to believe a lie, or to face a truth too painful to endure? The lie of the Emperor's protection offers comfort, a reason to endure another day. But the truth, that humanity is alone, abandoned, devouring itself, offers something deeper: freedom. Some choose the lie because it keeps them alive. Others choose the truth because it lets them love without illusion. Neither choice is easy, and both end in loss. But within that struggle lies the essence of humanity that the Imperium cannot erase. The ability to care, even when it brings suffering. The strength to hope, even when hope is forbidden. Every act of love in the Warhammer40K universe is an act of defiance. Every parent who whispers to their child in the dark, every hand that shields rather than strikes, every tear shed in secret is a rebellion against the machine of faith that consumes them. The Imperium survives by crushing individuality, by turning people into tools, but it cannot fully destroy what makes them human. Somewhere, in the endless night of the galaxy, a mother still sings to her child beneath the roar of orbital bombardment. A father still carves his child's name into the side of a weapon, not as a prayer to the Emperor, but as a promise to remember. These small moments are meaningless to the Imperium, but they are everything to those who live them. The harsh reality of parenthood in the 41st millennium is not just the pain of loss or the burden of sacrifice, it is the struggle to keep love alive when everything around you demands its death. It is the quiet defiance of the human heart, refusing to surrender completely to the darkness. For all its cruelty and madness, the galaxy still trembles at the power of that defiance. The Imperium can command bodies, it can command faith, it can command death, but it cannot command love. And as long as love endures, in the smallest corner of the smallest world, humanity endures with it.